Okay, welcome everyone. This is the West Virginia Stream Watch Orientation Training. I'm Autumn Crow, the staff scientist with West Virginia Rivers Coalition, and we also have Jake Lemon with Trout Unlimited, and we'll be going through a slideshow presentation, teaching you guys how to use this new and exciting West Virginia Stream Watch app. Just go through a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Everybody should be muted, but if you're just joining us, make sure that your line is muted. We'll be doing a question and answer period after the presentation. And then you can, if you scroll down to the toolbar on the bottom of the Zoom, there's a chat feature. And so you can enter any questions into the chat at any time during the presentation, and then during the Q&A, you can either unmute yourself or we'll go through the questions in the chat. So that's it for the housekeeping, other than that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending out a copy of the recording to everyone that registered. So with that, Jake, I'll let you take it away.
Sure, yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Jake Lemon. I'm TU's Monitoring and Community Science Manager. And over the past, I guess it's getting close to not quite a year, I've been working with Autumn at West Virginia Rivers and some folks at DEP, and then some other partners, to develop a smartphone-enabled tool to facilitate the reporting of pollution incidents and restoration opportunities and other things that folks see out on the stream that might need to be addressed in one fashion or another. So tonight we're just going to go over, we've developed sort of this version 1 of the tool, and tonight we're going to go over what it does, how we hope it's used, and just some step-by-step how-to on how to download it, how to use it, that sort of thing. And so with that, I guess we'll jump to the next slide. There we go. So I think I see some familiar names out there. So I know some of you are involved in our West Virginia Water Quality Monitoring Project, but this is a partnership between Trout Unlimited and West Virginia Rivers that's been going on since, I guess, 2013 or 14, maybe 13, I think, where we've been working with TU chapters and volunteers and watershed associations and just concerned citizens to, both with water quality and visual observation, monitor streams that are at risk from mostly pipeline and shale gas related development, but more broadly just collect data to help protect streams and rivers in West Virginia. We've been holding trainings throughout the state and developing different types of resources to help our volunteers protect their local streams and rivers. And the map you see here shows all of our water quality monitoring sites that we've collected data at over the past I guess 8 years or so, 9 years. And this is sort of a continuation and part of that project, an added tool to help facilitate citizen oversight and citizen-based protection of streams and rivers. So West Virginia Stream Watch is, like I said, a smartphone-enabled form that facilitates the collection of GPS data or location information, photographs, and descriptions of things that folks observe on streams and rivers in West Virginia. It's on a platform called Survey 123. Many of you maybe have used that in the past. It's basically a data collection tool that's tied in with Esri GIS software that enables sort of just streamlines and facilitates the sharing and visualizing of photographic and other types of data. And so our vision for this form or this application is to provide something that folks have in their pocket. Most of us carry our phone on us all the time nowadays when we're out on the streams and rivers, whether we're we're paddling, fishing, hiking, whatever we're doing out there. And so the idea is to have a streamlined tool for folks to document and share the things that they see that may be concerning, whether they're erosion and sedimentation issues, point source pollution issues, even fish passage barriers and habitat issues of that sort. And this will be put into a database that's accessible to West Virginia DEP, to Trout Unlimited, to West Virginia Rivers, to be used to do follow-up enforcement or inspections on issues that could warrant violations from the state, and then also to identify and share potential conservation projects, whether that be removal of fish passage barriers, which I'll touch on a little bit later, or stream cleanups, things of that nature, projects to work with agricultural, with farmers to improve the water quality on their land, things of that nature. There's I think a few different models for how this tool can be used. One, like I said, is just to have it in your pocket, and when you're out on the stream, if you see things that, we'll talk about some examples of things you could look for, but if you see things that are an issue, you can, record it, document it, submit it, and then we can consider, follow-up options from there. The other potential, I think, model for how this could be used is to do more of a watershed scale assessment. And we've done some similar things in other areas like this. So, say you have a watershed association that wants to document, all the fish passage barriers or potential fish passage barriers in their watershed, or where all the, the dumps and, stream cleanup needs are within a watershed, or all the erosion and sedimentation issues. You could, we've done, helped work on with groups to do basically float entire sections of the river and document everything you see with sort of a very specific goal in mind for the types of things that you're looking for. So it's a tool that can be used in a variety of ways. And so I think next I'm going to be talking about just how the data collection process works, sort of a training on that. Autumn will talk about the different types of disturbances or issues that this thing is designed to document. And then we'll talk about, some additional resources, how to download it, things of that nature. So I'm just going to walk through now how the app actually would, how it would look on your phone there. So like I said, I'll talk about this later. It'll be on the survey 123 will be the actual application on your phone on which this form will live. And when you collect data, basically you're just clicking, collect here, and you're entering a series of information, stream. If there's an asterisk, this little red asterisk beside it, that means it's required. If there's no asterisk, it isn't required. So we just have some basic information like the name of the stream in which or nearby stream where you've observed the issue, and then contact info. So your name, your email address, your phone number. That's not required, the contact info, but it would help. It's helpful to enter it, if we could have follow-up questions that might help us better, formulate a response or get this information in the hands of whoever needs it, that sort of thing. Then you actually mark your location, and this will work even if you don't have cell signal. You just click this little sort of compass looking button on the top left of that map, and that will set everything, the pictures you're taking, the data, the information that you've collected, that will geolocate it so that when it's observed, we know where that information came from. So like the nice thing here is, we've been collecting this type of information with volunteers for several years now, and folks are usually using their camera, their phone or whatever. They're using another application or tool to take GPS coordinates, and then they're sending us an email and attaching these things and, copying them over. This brings it all into one tool where we can get that contact information, that location information, those pictures, all of it, and it automatically is sent to us in one step. So it's nice and streamlined there. So you'll mark your location, and then we have a set of disturbance categories, which we'll talk about in more detail later, that are more broad. So things like sedimentation and erosion, water quality impacts, solid waste, in-stream impact, fish passage barrier. So when you click one of those, you'll get a set of sort of subcategory choices. So in this example here, we clicked sedimentation and erosion, and then we got failed erosion control measure, slope failure, sediment on a roadway, sediment laden runoff entering a stream, a sediment deposition in a stream or wetland. And we have little clickable pictures here on the left that will kind of provide some additional guidance to how we're looking to categorize these. And so this will enable us to just quickly categorize what kind of report has been submitted, again, just to streamline the response. This next screenshot is where we upload photos. So you can either upload photos by clicking the little camera button here and taking the photo using the app, or you can actually pull photos from your phone's photo storage using the folder button here. And then you want to add additional photos, you just press the plus button and take additional photos. I think it will take up to 10 photos, I think is where it's set. Really, 1 to 3 is generally going to be what we're looking for, but as many photos as you think is needed to accurately document what you're looking for, that's what you can submit. There's a little information section here on DEP's emergency spill hotline. So like if you're observing a spill of hazardous waste or hazardous material, it provides information on how to report that so that you can ensure the correct response rather than using, this tool isn't really designed for hazardous waste spills. Those should be should be submitted through the DEP hotline. And then we have a comment section that is just where you can explain what it is you saw and provide some sort of narrative description of what you saw. So once you've entered that information, you just click this check mark and you'll say survey completed. If you're in an area where you have data service, you can go ahead and send it right then, and it'll upload straight to the database and we'll have it. If you're collecting it in an area where you don't have cell signal or you don't have cellular data, you can save it in your outbox and submit it later. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So if we were sending it now, you click that, you'll get this sort of screen here, and then it'll go back to the main screen and you'll see it in your sent folder here, all the submissions that you sent. So basically you can check just to make sure that what you observed was sent by looking in this folder here. So sending data later, as I mentioned, you would save it in the outbox. And then when you're back home on your home internet, or you're back in town and you have cellular data, you just open the outbox and just click send, and it'll send everything in your outbox. So if you happen to be out and you collected 10 observations, they'll all be listed right here. You just send them all at once and they'll go in your sent folder, and you'll see that they were submitted to the database. So another just sort of helpful hint is, how to set your certain answers as favorites. And this can just sort of streamline the data entry process. So say you want to just have your name and email address attached to anything that you submit. You can type it into the form. So I got my name and email address here as an example. You click the little 3-line thing here, set answers as favorite. Then you actually close out of the app and save that in drafts. Then every time moving forward, when you start a new form, you can just paste your favorite answers, and then you'll automatically have like your name and email or phone number, whatever you want in there, in that form, and then you can collect the additional information. So this, on the back end, this data goes into a web application, and this is just a screenshot, but basically it's an interactive map, and these are some test points that we've uploaded over the past couple weeks, where we can go in, click, see the data that's been and the photos that have been submitted, and then formulate a sort of a follow-up response. At this point, this map is only going to be accessible to Trout Unlimited, West Virginia Rivers, and to West Virginia DEP. We'll be setting it up so that whenever a submission is sent in, we'll get an email notification of that submission so that we can go in and check on what was submitted and see if there's any follow-up needed. We can filter them based upon the category, whether it's a sediment and erosion or, anything like that. And it'll provide sort of both a short-term way of us accessing the data and then a long-term sort of database and data visualization solution to access information that was submitted in the past. I really wish we had this tool at our disposal when we started our visual assessment work in West Virginia and Virginia, years ago. It's just sort of takes a lot of steps out of the process and really organizes the data in a way that's more streamlined for folks like Autumn and I and West Virginia DEP to use it, and also just reduces the steps that the volunteers need to take in order to submit that data. So just really a tool that can streamline the process. So just to show you a little bit here of how it works, we click the point, we can see all the information that was collected and actually pull up the data. This is, I think that's Autumn, it's Autumn's Sun Ridge there on a little stream near their house. We got a little eroded cut bank here. And we can then easily, actually send links to this data to, for example, if it's an enforcement problem, we can send that link directly to DEP enforcement, and they'll have the pictures, the GPS location and everything, so that they can follow up on that. And maybe Autumn later, if you want to talk about how that process has worked in the past and, the kind of follow up that we see there. Or conversely, if we have something that's more of a stream cleanup issue, it could be a project for a local watershed group, or a habitat issue. It could be something where Trout Unlimited or another conservation organization could identify where, a good project opportunity might be to work with farmers or, remove a fish passage barrier or something of that nature. So basically, process, we have the app on your phone, you submit it, we get the notification, we can look at it, and we can, if you could put your contact information in there, we can follow up with you and let you know how that information is being used and what results would have come out of that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Autumn to talk about the kinds of disturbances and issues that we've sort of identified to focus on with this tool.
Thanks, Jake. So yeah, we tried to categorize the types of disturbance that you might see while you're out on the streams, and we tried to categorize it in a way that would make sense for you when you're entering the data in there. So we broke it down into sedimentation and erosion issues, water quality impacts, solid waste such as litter in the stream, in-stream impact, fish passage barrier, or other. And so I'm going to go into more detail into each of these disturbance types. And so this is kind of a summary of all of the different disturbance types and the categories. And we have a picture associated with each type of disturbance to help you, if you're not sure what it is, we have an example of a photo to help you figure out how you should categorize it. And so for sedimentation and erosion, a lot of you that are on this training have probably gone through some of our visual assessment trainings, our water quality monitoring trainings. So I'm not going to go into too much detail onto each type and the different BMPs tonight. But what we're looking at when we're talking about sedimentation and erosion, we're talking about slips, landslides, construction sites that have the best management practices that are failing, the sediments actually impacting either a water body or a roadway, which either one of those would be an enforcement action that DEP would want to follow up on. So sediment-laden water entering the stream, failed erosion controls, silt fences either torn or being overtopped or undercut, slope failures where you have like a stabilized area that's starting to slip, sediment or sediment-laden water entering the roadway, that causes safety issues. And then sediment or sedimentation in a stream or wetland. That's a big problem for habitat. And so anytime you see an active construction site, they're supposed to be maintaining their erosion control measures so that none of these instances occur. So any of these instances that you see, if you're out on a stream, those would be something that we would follow up. And if we see one of those come into the database, then we're going to follow up with the DEP Environmental Enforcement Department, and we're going to send them the photo and the location and follow up with the inspectors to see if there was any type of violation issued for any of those. So this section of disturbances would be really good for our volunteers that are doing like pipeline monitoring or highway construction monitoring. Water quality impacts. This is kind of a catch-all for any disturbance type where the water quality is being impacted. So things like acid mine drainage, algal blooms, a petroleum spill, or a fish kill. If the petroleum spill or fish kill is serious enough, then that's something that you might want to report to the DEP spill hotline. But you could also take a photo and report it to us as well. And then a pipe discharging to a stream. This could be stormwater runoff or a straight pipe if there's lack of sewage infrastructure. Most of the pipes that are discharging to streams should have some kind of like signage and a permit number associated with that. But if it's an illegal discharge, like a straight pipe or something like that, then that's something that we want to capture and try to prevent from happening in our streams. And then the solid waste category, this would be if you're floating down the river and you see litter in the stream, and maybe you want to come back and get it later, or you're trying to work with your watershed group to plan a cleanup, and you're seeing which waterways have a lot of litter in them. So if you see litter in the stream, that's just a way to capture that. And then open dumps. So this would be like a lot of concentrated litter where people are like actively dumping illegally. A lot of times you see these on like cliffs along roadways and stuff, but they can also occur near waterways. And then a tire dump. Tires just have a little bit different disposal requirements. So we separated that out. So this is if you're working with a watershed group and you are working on like stream cleanups, this would be the category that you'd want to use. And then in-stream impacts, this is just talking about like equipment in stream or livestock in the stream, something that's in the stream that's causing damage to the stream. It could be a permitted activity, but it might not be a permitted activity. So, sometimes landowners just take it upon themselves to, put an excavator in the stream and dig out a swimming hole or something. Or, it might be like a permitted activity, like a pipeline. But this is the category where you would capture equipment that may or not be supposed to be there. And then livestock in the stream, it's not necessarily a violation of our water quality standards to have the livestock in the stream. It does create impacts to the watershed and the water quality. And there are voluntary best management practices. There's agencies, the West Virginia Conservation Agency, NRCS, the natural resource conservation agencies, and they'll work with the landowner, the farmer, to fence out the livestock, provide an alternative water source. So this is not necessarily a environmental enforcement action, but it is something where you can capture how many farms are allowing their livestock in the streams, and then maybe have the watershed group work with their local conservation district or something to work with those farmers to try to get some fencing put in to keep some of the livestock excluded from the stream. And then fish passage barriers. Jake was referring to this earlier. So this is, more of like fish habitat issues. So the trout and everything, you want to have access to the full stream for a good habitat connection. And so perch culverts, like say there's a road crossing a stream and the culvert is pouring out into the stream, and so the fish can't migrate up through that culvert because they'd have to like jump out of the water to get into the culvert. So that's what a perch culvert is. It's where the stream isn't connected through the roadway because the culvert is placed too high. So that's something where groups like Trout Unlimited are getting funding to redo some of those culverts to make the habitat more connected in the stream. And then a dam. The dams could be, older kind of dams that were used in like logging operations or something like that aren't necessarily serving a function anymore, and might need to be removed to help with that habitat connectivity. And so now we're going to go into some tips for capturing good photos. So tip number one is to balance the amount of detail, like how close you're zooming in with the perspective, like how far you're zooming out. So you want to capture the whole area and kind of what's going on in the issue that you're looking at. So the good photo has like a construction scene and it has the best management practices and showing how they're failing. The bad photo, it looks like there's some sediment being transported, but we're not sure where the stream is or what's going on there. So you want to make sure that you're zoomed out to a level that is showing enough detail for us to understand what's going on in the picture. And tip number two is use an object of known size for a scale. So the good photo, you can see a car and a person in the background. That just kind of gives you some perspective on how large the issue is, like how far the sediment is being transported off site. And then the bad photo, you can tell that there's some runoff happening, but it's hard to tell which side of the silt fence. It's hard to see where the sediment is going. So you want to really capture the full extent of the issue. And then tip number three is to document the source. So if you see sediment laden water entering the stream, that might not necessarily be a violation of like a stormwater permit. It could just be natural erosion occurring. So in the one photo, we have a reclaimed construction site where you can actually see the sediment laden water running off the construction site and into the stream. And then the other photo, you see sediment laden water entering a larger water body, but we have no source of where that sediment is coming from. So in the photo with the bridge, you would want to try to go upstream to see if you can find the source of that sediment. And then always good practice is to take multiple photos with different perspectives, because if we're just looking at these photos, it's really hard for us to tell what is going on around the incident. And so it's really helpful for us if you take photos with different perspectives from multiple angles, so we can see, okay, here's where the sediment and the sediment laden water is backed up uh, against some erosion controls. Here's where it's breaching the erosion controls, and here's where it's entering the stream. And that's really useful for us. And back to you, Jake.
All right, thanks, Autumn. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to download the app and the form. It's pretty intuitive if you've used the smartphone, but I'll go ahead and do a quick step-by-step and point out a couple places where sometimes folks have issues. But basically, it's a two-step process. You're downloading Survey 123 from your iPhone App Store or Google Play if you have Android. We actually provide a QR code that will take you to a link that will get that app downloaded on your form. And then once you have Survey 123 on your phone, you're actually downloading this West Virginia Stream Watch form, which again, the same QR code or this link will get you there. So you can either scan the QR code, which I'll talk about a little bit in a second, or you can actually enter the link into your like Safari or whatever browser you use in your smartphone. So just kind of walking through it with screenshots here, we just opened our camera app and we just hovered over this QR code, and then it has a little window drop down. It says open in Safari. You click that and it takes you to this page. So at this point, we're just downloading the app. So that's this black button down here, if you have iPhone. If you have Android, the process is very similar. These screenshots are from an iPhone. So click that. That'll take you to the iPhone App Store. You download it using this little cloud with the down arrow here. And then once that app is downloaded, then you actually go back, open your camera app again, scan the QR code, open the link, and then you can open that form. This button says open in Survey 123 field app. So that's what you would do there. So once you click that, it'll say open this page in Survey 123. And so you click open. And then it'll probably ask you a couple questions like, can Survey 123 access your camera? You'll want to enable access to that so that you can take photos within the app. It might also request to access your location, which you'll want to allow access to that so that you can geolocate your information. So you'll press OK there. And here's the big one. Here's the place where people get hung up sometimes. You don't need to create an ArcGIS online account. Don't do that. Do not create the account. Just there's a button here that says continue without signing in. So you can click that, but don't worry about creating an account. So continue without signing in, and then it will download the form onto your Survey 123 app, and then you'll see it here in this My Survey 123 page. This is the West Virginia Stream Watch form, which you just collect that. You click that, and then you would get to the sort of the point where you're collecting information. We actually have written up a couple documents that walks through this download process in detail that we'll send out to all the folks who registered for this webinar. We have another document that walks through and the different types of categories of disturbances and then the subcategories underneath of those, so that folks can have that for a reference. So we'll send both of those resources out and probably end up putting them on West Virginia Rivers webpage for this app as well. So, we're here kind of, I guess, as your tech support for this tool, as you're getting used to using it, getting it on your phone, that sort of thing. We can help if you run into any issues. But yeah, we're excited about this. This was This effort was funded by West Virginia DEP to help sort of, again, streamline the process of reporting pollution issues and potential violations. And we also are leveraging it, like we've talked about, to identify other habitat issues that might inform, voluntary conservation projects or habitat projects, green cleanups, that sort of thing. And so we hope that individuals and watershed groups will, take advantage of this, have it in their pocket, and use it as a way to, collect information and get it to people that can hopefully help them address issues in West Virginia streams and rivers. So I think with that, I think that's the end of the presentation. So I think we can probably go to questions unless you have anything to add, Autumn.
No, I think we've covered everything. I would just add that, West Virginia DEP is helping to fund this project, and they also helped in the development of the categories, providing us feedback on those different categories.
So how do you want to do questions? Do you want people to submit it in the chat or unmute themselves, or?
Yeah, we do have one question in the chat. I think you may have already answered this, but who does the submitted info go to? Yeah,
I can reinforce that. So it goes to that web application, and that's accessible to West Virginia DEP. So actually their office, environmental advocates, and to Trout Unlimited and West Virginia River. So we'll get email notifications when those are submitted, so that they can be, followed up on appropriately, whether that goes to DEP enforcement or whether there's some other, if it's not a violation, some other approach. So that's where it goes.
Any other questions? You can drop them into the, oh, here's one. Okay. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it possible to input the data when you're outside of cell range and upload it later? Yeah. So you can, if you're collecting data outside of cell range, you'll still be able to collect your GPS information. You don't need cell service in order to do that. Then you just save it in your outbox. There's instructions there's instructions that I went over earlier on that. And so you save it in your outbox, and then when you get back home on your Wi-Fi or you get back in town, you can then upload it. Autumn, this might be a good one for you. Many folks already use Water Reporter. What are the reasons to change over?
Yeah, and Water Reporter is a very similar app, and some watershed groups are already using Water Reporter. I think mostly the watershed groups that are based in the Eastern Panhandle. We developed this app as part of our water quality monitoring program and pipeline visual assessment program. So for folks that are already involved in those programs, that were, having to email GPS coordinates and photos and disturbance issues, it was very tedious to do all of that. So we developed this app as part of our water quality monitoring and visual assessment program to kind of streamline that reporting process. But for those folks that are already using Water Reporter, there's no reason why you have to switch over to this program. But we will be using, I think we'll be using the data a little bit differently than Water Reporter. If you're specifically like wanting to report pollution incidents through our water quality monitoring program or our pipeline visual assessment program, that we would report to DEP. So the apps are very similar. They're capturing similar information. They're just different projects.
Okay. It says, will you walk through again how to save your personal data? Okay, so I think we're talking about how to save your favorites. Is that right, Howdy? Can you let me know if I'm on the mark there? Like how to save like your name and your email address or whatever. All right, I'm gonna assume that's what he's asking. We'll go back real quick here. All right, setting answers as favorites. So basically, if you want to have your personal info as there, so that you can just paste it easily, you know, you open a form, enter it, whatever you want. You want to add your phone number, that's fine too. You set it, you click this little 3-line button here, set as favorite answers. Oops, I switched it just a second. Set as favorite answers. And then you actually close out the form just by hitting the X here and save it in your drafts. From then on, whenever you open a new form, you just click the 3-line button here and paste answers from favorites, and then you don't have to retype your name and your email address and your phone number and all that every time. Okay. I got Alex. Can you put QR codes back up? I just got the app downloaded and need the second one. Yeah. I'll also send out these QR codes via email, but I can go ahead and pull up that screen for you if you like. So we'll send these out so you'll have it. Oh, there it is. Larry, can we run test cases where we have when we have the app loaded? Oh, can you like submit a test report? I think that would be fine to do that. Just make sure that you are clearly, you know, communicate that it's a test run. You know, call the stream like test or whatever. That's totally fine. And then Howdy wants unmuted. Let's see if we can do that. Can you do that, Autumn?
I was trying to figure out how to do that. I think he's.
All right, Jake.
Yeah.
Autumn,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the question of saving your data. Where, you know, I loaded my stuff in, and then hit save as favorite. Now, where do you close out? At the end of the survey?
Going back here, just a second. So you set your favorites, then you just press this X
Right. I
in the
put my
top left.
data in.
Yeah, and then save and drafts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And then is there a hard copy of reports? So we can make one, I suppose, but it's not like automatically generated. That data will live on the Esri, which is the company that makes Survey 123. It'll live on their servers. It'll actually live on a TU server that is viewable through the Esri software. So it'll actually be on a TU server. So there's not like a hard copy generated. Now, if say it, you know, if we submit, if there's an issue that's found and it's sent to DEP and then they go out and do an inspection, there would be a hard copy of that report, right, Autumn, eventually,
Yeah.
but not of the initial observation. And then DEP asks for written details. So yeah, I think this is a tool that we developed with DEP. And I think the idea is that we can just share links to the info with them, again, to streamline that sharing. So we're not planning, again, to generate hard copy reports out of this information, rather just share it via the links and that sort of thing with with folks at DEP. Right, exactly. Save a tree, share a link. I like it.
Yeah, so I imagine if it would be a reportable incident, then I would, I would see it come in through the map, and I would copy that link into the DEP web complaint email address that goes to the Environmental Enforcement Department. So I would, instead of copying Latin long coordinates and the issue and attaching a photo, I would just be sending them a link to the map. Although I don't know if Environmental Enforcement Department would have access.
Yeah, I know the Office of Environmental Advocate will, so we'll have to work with them to figure out their internal, make sure they have it set up internally so that works out. Any possibility of sharing with water reporter? I don't know what the process would be there. Autumn, I don't know if you have any idea of how that could work.
Yeah, I mean, they've developed, the downstream project has developed a different app, and I don't think it's hosted on Survey 123 platform. So I'm not sure if the information would be transferable. I'd have to we could get with downstream project and start a discussion of, you know, how the two might be able to interface together. But yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head what platform they're using and whether the information would be transferable or not. I mean, it would be if a watershed group was interested in doing what Jake was talking about, like a watershed scale assessment, you know, we would be able to share the information with a watershed group, all of the data that is being collected within that watershed. We would be able to develop like a map that would, the Watershed Association would be able to look at and see all of the information coming in. You have anything else to add to that, Jake?
Nope. Any other questions? Well, if anything comes in, we'll answer it, but I'll go ahead and just say that, yeah, I would thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is a new tool, so we welcome feedback. We can we can make adjustments to this over time as we get feedback from. We've had some beta testers work through it, but we can make adjustments. You know, what I will say though is that we tried to capture the breadth of things that would be useful to capture, but we tried to keep it as simple as possible. You know, you could easily, you know, have 50 categories of things that you could document with a tool like this, but then it gets just a little bit unwieldy. And so we tried to keep it as simple as possible, tried to hone it in on the things that we could address, whether through working with DEP or whether through, you know, watershed groups or TU or whatever for conservation type projects. But that being said, we welcome feedback if you run into issues, that sort of thing. We'll work through, you know, Autumn and I are basically tech support for this. If you have problems getting it on your phone or whatever, let us know and we'll help you. And yeah, let us know how it works for you. We'll be monitoring it regularly. Like I said, we'll be getting email notifications when folks are submitting reports and that sort of thing. And so, you know, and if as a group, if you're planning to use it for like a watershed scale assessment, feel free to reach out to us ahead of time and give us a heads up so that we can make sure we're set up to help out as much as we can. So with that, I think that's all I have. Autumn, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it. Just reach out to us if you have any additional questions. You'll be getting the recording of this webinar and the training documents that we showed you. And I hope everybody can get out on the streams and put it to use. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.